So now I'm going to hand over to Daniel.
Hey everyone, my name's Daniel. I'm one of the co-founders at CIVIC Square, and we're based in Birmingham. And our work has really been about looking at what infrastructure we can create in neighbourhoods to kind of enable neighbours, people, local residents to kind of lead the transitions of many different types, whether it's a social, ecological, etc., etc. And we were really just inspired by a lot of the work that's been happening here already in Bristol and We Can Make and the community-led housing, and then on to thinking about the front gardens and the connections with Better Block, some of the work we'd already been kind of doing around involving people in co-building and making interventions in their neighbourhoods. This kind of front garden kit package was really interesting to us, particularly at the point in the work that we were, like this year, we were looking to start to actually deeply demonstrate ways that people could work together on their streets to kind of build towards transition and of their streets and their homes. So earlier on this year in March, I think we reconnected with Melissa, and she was telling us about that question of like how our front gardens can be used as shared infrastructure for neighbours to like think about transition. And in terms of Retrofit Reimagined, that we were like working towards building on the first year of it in 2022, it really spoke to these first two kind of shifts that we were looking at making, moving from individual customers to neighbourhood collectives, and looking at our streets as a living system. And how can we involve people in like looking at our streets in that way and thinking about their front gardens in different ways? So that's where we thought that we could start to test the front garden retrofit kit. And so our approach to this was to actually, I think here at We Can Make, they'd actually curated a set for front gardens here in Bristol, working with the neighbours here, and like actually selected different items from the Better Block library. And there were some items that represented ways to connect socially, and then there were others who kind of were more about the ecological side of things, so the planter and the hedgehog house as part of the kit. And so we wanted to think about how we could, because we were working with a particular street in Birmingham, to start to see how neighbours kind of organise together and how they make interventions in their own street together. We wanted to look at how people could take on a more ambassadorial role with some of these items of furniture in lots of different places. So there's a street that we've been working with called Link Road that you can see in the photo there. And this street is very special. It's really interesting in terms of how people on that street have organised. They have like some of the best street parties and have been doing it for decades. And so they connected with us and our work in CIVIC Square, and we started there with connecting with that street and people there taking on items from the furniture kit. Particularly the sharing library was of interest at first. And then from there, we started to distribute it wider. So at some of our events that we have, so we have the Big Lunch, which is like an annual event every year. And we started to set up a site for people to kind of co-build these items together and then take them home and test how they could start conversations with their neighbours on the street. So these are some photos of the different sites. And then we brought it into the Retrofit Reimagined festival season. So at each site, we've been doing co-builds and then people taking away an item of furniture to try it on their street. So this was us at Borsall Heath, which was the first session. And yeah, you can see they're really quite vibrant and quite attractive. And so people got quite interested in what they could do with these. And so I'm just flicking through some examples of the pictures and how it's been. And this was at the Building Centre in London. That's the latest one that we did. Was it last week? Yeah, literally last week. There was a co-build outside the Building Centre in London, and this was the full set that was being taken and delivered to the Power Station Street in Walthamstow. And you'll see the film about that later on if you're about this evening. But they've taken that to see how people on their street will use it. And yeah, so this is back at Link Road again, and what we've found is that people start to think about how they would use each item. So the little sharing cupboard on Link Road, their walls are of different heights. So one family decided that they would dedicate their little sharing cupboard to children and children's books. And these are just some examples of where they've been situated. But they were quite, I think about them as quite a bit of a statement about like people who are interested in, or kind of signalling to this idea that they're interested in having conversations with their neighbours about retrofit. And one of the other things that we've been working on and designing or prototyping is a housewarming pack that we give to people alongside the items of furniture. So within that there is a blackboard and some chalk pens to make signage that makes invitations for people to come and engage with the items of furniture, offering a book as well to go in the little sharing cupboard, things like stickers to go inside books, and just there was a bunch of sort of street experiment challenges that we also included to kind of give ideas of what you could do to connect with your neighbours and try different things in line with the furniture. Oh, there goes my phone. So this is another family that took some items from the furniture kit, and they, you can see in the bottom, they used the blackboard off their own accord and just created signage and kind of almost signaled to the Retrofit Reimagined and being part of this movement. And it was really nice to see that someone had taken this up, and there's a small activity which was all about kind of grounding in your neighbourhood, just doing the 5 kind of senses, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can smell. And it was kind of like how people really take the time to look at their local ecology and their neighbourhood and slow down and making that invitation. And I think that's a wide part of the movement in the broadest sense that we need to kind of get involved in. And so we're seeing lots of different examples of this. And today we have a neighbour who is based in Bartley Green, an area of Birmingham at Dilwara, who took on a sharing library at the Big Lunch and has done some amazing things. So we want to have a little bit of a chat with Dilwara now as well to share her story of the sharing library that she took. So yeah, Dilwara, hey, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you wanted to kind of take on the sharing library when you came to the Big Lunch. What inspired you? What was driving you to do that? She's got the mic on.
Just checking if this is working.
Or maybe
Can you hear me all? Okay. First of all, thank you for having me here. I feel so honoured and humbled to be here and use
this
I feel really humbled to be here and to be able to talk about hosting a sharing library. So your question was, what interested me in hosting the sharing library? Well, there was no selling needed for me. As soon as I heard there's an opportunity to get a free library that I could have, I was there. I was like, I know it says B16 and it's for the local, but I'm not local. I live 25 minutes away in the suburb. Can I still come? Can I still come and take one? And they just saw my passion and they were like, we'll accommodate you. So that's where it started. But before I even got to the sharing library, I've always dreamed of living in a communal space where you connect with your neighbours and you're part of each other's life. Because I grew up in inner city Birmingham and we very rarely bought anything. Everybody in the street knew everybody. We always borrowed things. We always shared things. And now it feels like it's a new movement. If you want to be progressive, you have to learn how to share. And And it really became apparent to me when I moved to where I live now, which is the suburbs. So going from inner city, well built up area to somewhere where it's more leafy and green, what was missing in that was the community bond. We may have been in a built up area, but everybody knew everybody looked out for everybody, and if you got off to mischief, your parents knew before you went home. Whereas now, where I live, no one knows nobody, no one wants to know anybody. They're in the me world. And that was me as well. I've been living in my house for 16 years. At least I'll say 8 years of that, I very much got in my car, went to work, parked up, went into my house, and I lived in my bubble. That changed when I had my daughter, and you realize you need people. Village brings up a child. You don't bring up a child on your own. So very soon I was like, right, I need to change the makeup of our environment. And before I came across Sharing Library, I came across a movement called Food is Free in America. And basically any surplus you grew, you put it outside, you had a cupboard, you shared it. And I loved that concept, but I couldn't realize it. So it's been in my dream for a long time until I came across Civic Square, and that's transformed not only my world and my life and my child's, but all those that go past me and my house now.
Thank you. And I've seen a lot of the outcome from you just having that library and what you've been putting out on social media. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about, like, of course you showed why you decided to take the sharing library, but what have you seen happen with it since on your street, and what have you personally done with it and the interactions with your neighbourhood and stuff?
So today marks the first month of the sharing library that I've been facilitating. So again, it's like his first birthday. And it honestly is really, really special, because even when I spoke to Daniel when we first met at B16 lunch, I was like, I really, really want to have one of these libraries, and I want to facilitate it, I want to host it, but I do have a reservation. One, I'm not in your postcode, so I don't quite fit your criteria. But the second thing is, we have very, very happy friends that go past at night time. So there is a risk. It may not last a week, but regardless of the risk, I still want to try. And thankfully, Civic Square, Daniel were like, we will work with you. And even if it doesn't last a week, that's data, that's evidence of that social environment. No wrong is a wrong, there's learning in that. So with that in mind, we set up the sharing library in my neighbourhood. So when I say my neighbourhood, I mean my driveway. So if you look at the hedge on this end picture, that's my driveway with my cherry tree. That brick post where the sharing library is being housed actually belongs to my neighbour. So the day after I made the sharing library, I went to my neighbour, speaking over the fence that we've now lowered. I said, oh, you won't believe it, I went to this thing and they were so amazing. We were the first ones there, but the last ones to leave, and they were packing up around us and they still couldn't get rid of me. And I've made this library, and guess what? They're going to give it to me, and I'm going to bring it and I'm going to put it on the road. By the way, can I use your brick post? So I only told her that bit after I sold her the idea. But to be honest, she's a Yorkshire woman. She didn't need it being sold to. She already has that makeup of live with the community. So I'm grateful for her for accommodating the sharing library. And I will say, it's a collaboration. It's not me on my own that's doing it. She's also doing it because she works from the downstairs front room, so she could see the crowds as they're coming and going. But I have to champion and give a shout out to my daughter, Aya Aliverk. She's 10. She checks in every morning before school, checks in every home time to see what stock is in there. Then she comes, Mama, all the children's books are gone. We need more children's books. Oh, there's no more seats left. What are we going to do about it? So, it's not me. It's transformed her life. So I want to just give a bit more about why I chose to call it a sharing library than a sharing cupboard, which is what Civic Square have used. And that's very much to do with the makeup of my community, but also what I'm passionate about. So I chose books, plants, herbs and seeds, without realizing it very comfortably fits in with the Retrofit Reimagined concept for this year, which is people, places, people, land and material. So the sharing library is already addressing the people. In terms of the land, that's my phase 2 of the sharing library. I'm already developing in my head, and I believe it to be realized by the end of next frost. And then the material is happening because Civic Square provided me with the material, the sharing library. Can you believe it didn't cost me anything, but it's paying and serving so many people? What a privilege it's to have that. And thank you to both of you for making that a reality, and to see the direct impact of that. So I think I may be ending up asking another question. Have I answered your question before I carry on? Yeah?
I just was going to ask you to kind of elaborate on some of that, because some of the things that I've seen you share on social media as well, and how people have started to take care of it as well beyond you. That's really inspiring to see as well. So any stories around that you want to share?
Sure. So like my initial reservations about the happy friends that may help themselves to the box in whichever form they do, the community of Bartley Green also felt similar reservations, it's not going to last a week, it's going to get vandalized, we've got challenging teenagers in the area. So I already had time to think about that, so my response to that was, yes, absolutely that could happen. I am with you with your reservations and your fear, but no, I'm not going to let a fear stop the opportunity to be happy and to create a healthier community. So I would hope, should that situation arise, there's good folks in the community that will step up and help with the DIY skills. Why do we have to always look at the negative and the vandals and the vandalism? Surely there must be someone to counterbalance that. We have tradespeople in the area, we have crafts makers. So will they not step in? Doesn't it work both ways? So I put that back out, and they were like, oh yeah, that's true, we never thought of it like that. So it's reconditioning the community, re-educating the community. And the fine example of that was within maybe 10 days or 15 days of the sharing library being installed, the Perspex glass door fell off. It's like, oh no, someone's damaged your sharing library. It's been vandalized by the teenagers. It's like, no. It was weather damage. It's impact of the weather. So I was coming home from school run, and I knew there was a couple behind me. When I saw it had fallen apart, I literally just stopped and I said, right, do you do DIY? Can you help me with this? And he didn't know how to respond. His name is Mark. He lives about 10 doors from me. We sort of nod at each other, but we don't actually talk to each other. I'm quite comfortable with that, because clearly their criteria is getting their kids to school, coming home, getting on with their job, and there's not really space for let's have a chitter-chatter. But in this incident, he had no choice, because I was in his face. Can you help me? And I knew he could help me because he always wore, working clothes. So the clue was in what he was wearing. He does some sort of DIY or construction or something, and he's like, oh, I'm a car mechanic, but I have something that could help. It wasn't even 5 minutes. He went home, he came back with his stuff, and he used this thing called, if anybody ever needs it, and I'm not getting commission for this, by the way, it's called Tiger Seal, and they use it for car bodywork. So he went, he sealed it for me, put tape on it, and he said, leave it for 24 hours, let it set, and it'll never come off again. Interestingly, I met other parents on school run, and they're not convinced that it was weather damage. They still think it was vandals. But it just shows the depth of frustration and anger and maybe dislike towards certain population, and it's trying to break that belief system and saying, actually, it's not our teenagers. Yes, they may have challenges, but who doesn't? And actually, I've seen the great side of the teenagers. So my road serves 4 primary schools, 2 nurseries, 2 secondary schools, and a university. But it's called Jiggins Lane. It's called a lane, but it's actually like an A road. It was totally mismarketed to me by my estate agent. Because I've lived in a road, I lived in a street, and I was like, I'm quite vintage, should I say. So why do I go and live in a lane? And I'll be living in like old English world. But it so wasn't, it's more like an A road. And for years, it really disappointed me with the noise pollution, the traffic pollution, the high footfall. But now, all of that's become the positive of the sharing library, because the number of users using, and I like to call them the takers rather than users, because our little strapline is take some, share some. So I call them the takers and the sharers rather than the borrowers, because that's what the City Council libraries like to use. And I'm not City Council. And I'm definitely not Birmingham City Council. There's been ample of sharers and takers, particularly children. Every morning, children, as you know, preschoolers, they will all look in, like pop their head in and look, and they'll be really disappointed if there's no children's books or if there's not a new supply of new children's books. And then home time is when they're not being dragged by the parent. You're going to be late to go to school. It's home time when it's a bit more relaxed, and they stop and they look, and they will take what they want. That includes secondary school children. You know those little rebels, the teenage generations? They actually do stop, and there's not been any vandals. They're interested in books. They want that opportunity. And my vision for the sharing library was there's 2 things that could empower people. One is literacy, and the second is skills. And that's what the sharing of books, plants, herbs and seeds is accommodating. And it's already begun. One mom told me recently that her child, he's only just learned to read. So he's probably on picture books with a few sentences. He takes all the thick books home because he wants to be like his mom. She reads big, thick books, and this sharing library offers big, thick books. So he's been helping himself every time he goes past, and his mom's like, he's taken so many, but he doesn't even know how to read yet. And I was like, oh, that's all right, because guess what he's doing is giving him that hope, is inspiring him. He may not be able to do those long sentences today. He will be in a year or 2's time. But if you still feel it's a problem, tell him to come and see me. Tell him the owner of the library wants to have a chat with you and to bring all those books back that you're hiding under your bed or anywhere else. And maybe that will solve your issue of my son's not listening to me and taking big books. And then I've had another mum, and I always see her with her and several children running to school every day, and they're lagging behind, and one's like further ahead, like so ahead. And she stopped me in the middle of a conversation with someone else, and she says, there was no children's books this morning. I was like, oh, but have you taken any? And she's like, yes, my children take them all the time. Have you bought any back? Not yet. So you get all these conversations happening, and you start building relationship. You get to see the personality of the people, and you see the dynamics of households and families and where they are in their relationship. So suddenly I'm finding I'm the peacemaker. I'm the one that's putting bridges there between generations. And my latest one from this morning is, I'm not the guardian of the galaxy. I'm the guardian of the sharing library. So because this morning when I was leaving the house at 7 a.m., I quickly popped my head in and had a look again, like my daughter does. I also do that. And I found a really cute note in there. I have it on my phone if anybody wants to look at it later on. And it said, add some superhero books, please. Now have a guess who that may be from. Is that from a 90-year-old grandma asking for this book? Or maybe the 10-year-old boy who didn't like reading books and suddenly wants to read books? So I replied back to him and I told my daughter, when you go to school, could you put that back in the box because I don't have time to put it back in. And so, thank you for expressing your interest to want to read superhero books. All the books in here are donated or shared by people of the community. I tell you what, I'll put a request out for it and let's see if that could happen for you. From Dilwara, guardian of the sharing library.
Wow. Sounds like you've had loads of fun with it. Like all those little small delights and small interactions with people in the everyday. It's just like, I think it just brings life to your daily routine. It just pulls you out or connect you to different people and yeah, just learning more about your neighbourhood. I find that part really like it's just endless fascination, endless delight basically. And I'm interested in also what tips you might have for someone else who's thinking about taking on an item of furniture and ways that they could use it to connect with people in their neighbourhood or talk about the many different themes connected to retrofit of our neighbourhoods. What sorts of things would you share with anyone who's thinking about that?
Just while you're thinking about that, it's also the Retrofit kit is an open source, downloadable, makeable anywhere infrastructure. So when you're listening to these tips that you're going to hear in a moment, like think about your own neighbourhood, your own front yard, and what might be useful. And if this kind of infrastructure, and it is social infrastructure that we're growing here, what might you do with this? Because this has just happened from one kind of share. So I'm so psyched for what could happen from all of the people kind of here taking it further.
So my tips, first one will be think about why do you want it? What purpose is it going to serve for initially you, your household, then your immediate neighbour, and are you going to go further afield? Is it going to serve your neighbourhood? So I set up because this became so popular, initially I started posting on Facebook page of the local community pages like Bartley Green Bulletin, Bartley Green page, We Love Bartley Green. There's like all these Bartley Green pages. And I found I was losing track of who I was responding to, which page I was, on and all that. So I then decided I was going to have a sharing library Facebook page and then just signpost people there. So the first point was why. And for me, it was, I want to see literacy in my community go up. I want to see skills go up. And why did I want that? Because I needed that once upon a time. And I know when you don't have that, how disenabling it is. But when you have literacy and when you have skills, how empowering and transformative that could be. And that, to me, was a pinnacle reason for why I wanted that in my community with the items I've chose. Now, there's been a request by my neighbourhood asking, can we have a craft box? Can we have other things? So, for example, if you live on a close of 15 houses, that's got a different benefit to it. You could have a tool sharing cupboard. You could potentially have a crafts sharing cupboard. You could have a food box, the food cupboard. So you could customize it according to your location. I can't possibly put this is where my stereotype comes in of the local community. I can't possibly put in cans of food or fresh tomatoes or apples in mine because the teenagers may end up whacking each other across the road with it. High risk factor. But if you live in a close, I'm sure you could do that and the grandmas won't be throwing cans at each other and it'll be safe. Or maybe, it'll be like encouraging sporting. It depends what your priority is. And then in terms of, so that will be why and how, what your purpose is. Second is think about where you want to position it. And would it work for you? Would it work for your household? Would it work for your neighbours? honestly, it does impact your neighbour. So get them on board if you want to do it, especially if you've got high footfall. Like I said, my neighbour works from her downstairs front room, but either she's got triple glazings or she's just zones out, because there's a lot of noise around 3 o'clock till about 4 o'clock, and she's like probably on international conference on her Zoom, and you've got all this excitement going on in the house. So again, think about what would work for you. Now I must now move from the sharing library to these amazing pieces of bench, and I've dressed up according to the bench. So would you want some Retrofit front room for garden furniture? Would it work for you? How many pieces would you want? And what purpose is that going to serve? So first I had the library, and that was from B16. And then I went to the Retrofit Reimagined in Moseley in Birmingham, in Balsall Heath. And then I made one of these benches. I just went straight, where's the making going on? Right, I'm going to go there. Today I want to take a bench home with me. And I got a green one. I thought that will fit with my environment. Now, originally my vision was to put it on the verge. Can you go show how my road looks? So there, you can see where the arrow is. That's my hedge with the tree, and just tucked in that is the sharing library, and opposite to that is the tree with the verge. Now, that patch 3 years ago had no grass left on it, because on my left are 2 houses with landlords. They don't live there. They live somewhere where I call with like West Wings in a manor somewhere, and they come and just rent the house to somebody. And they were just parking their trailers on the green verge to the stage. They killed it all off. So I spoke to my neighbour, my partner in crime, give a shout out to Gillian here. And I said, look, we need to do something about it, because it just looks really tatty now. Because when I moved here 16 years ago, it was green and it was lush. And now all we have is dirt and dust. So we bought we didn't buy the tyres. I went around garages and was like, can I have some tyres, please? And they're like, absolutely, because we have to pay to get rid of them. Take as many as you want. So I went and got all these tyres, and I plunked them on the 4 corners of that verge under the tree, and we planted that up. So it's wildlife friendly now. And I was originally in my mind's eye, my vision was that's where I'm going to plonk my green Retrofit bench. And so when people are waiting for the bus stop, particularly thinking about the elderly members, maybe they'll have somewhere to sit, or they're using the sharing library, they could sit there and have a little read or a natter, and maybe I could go and chat to some more people. And then I had to rethink and think, well, that won't work, because then all our beautiful planting, that will get killed or stumbled over. So I thought I'll have it in my driveway. And this is about empowerment and skill. So Civic Square very nicely delivered it to me, all made up and everything. So again, cost me nothing, cost me no time, no transport. How amazing are they? Give them a clap. But where I'm lacking skills, the DIY. Because again, I know area I live in, if I leave a bench outside, it's gone within 24 hours. And that's a guarantee, unlike the sharing library so far. So I want to get it chained to my wall, and I can't do that at the moment because I don't have the skill. So I've had to drag it through my house. It's currently sitting in my back garden. But when I said about my phase 2 vision for the sharing library, this is answering that whole ecology of that environment. What am I going to do? So I mentioned we accommodate plants and herbs and seeds, and that time of the year is usually come spring after the first frost. And my Facebook page has already had so many active members. I'm in my head already logging you're active, you're very positive, you're very creative, you're the green finger. I need to get all of you together come spring. And we're going to do a plant swap, plant sale, fundraise. And that's when my bench will come out. And maybe I'll have a few more pieces of furniture by then. Hint, hint. And I'm going to use that thing called driveway, the car park. where it's no longer a green garden. I put my hands up, I inherited that driveway, so I'm not taking responsibility for it. So I'm going to use that space to do a collective and to build that community and invite individuals and say, you've been so good as sharers of the library, be part of my guardian of the library, and let's do some plants sharing, let's do some skill sharing, let's talk about how we collect seeds, how we store seeds, how we grow things, how we propagate things, and let's share if you got surplus, sell if we need to fundraise, and let's feed that money back into growing my vision of the Eden that I want to live in.
Thank you so much, Dilwara, for sharing so openly about your front garden experiments, and it's so inspiring to hear. Like, I think there's so much creative potential in people, and you just need to give them the resources to be able to try things out. And I think the thing that's interesting about your story for me personally is just these are our front gardens are spaces where we have some degree of agency over if we own it or we're renting it. We have some agency over that space, and we can make interventions, and we can look at our local neighbourhood makeup to actually do informed things, and how we use spaces like Retrofit Reimagined to absorb knowledge and try different things and to move us towards where we need to get to collectively is possible through tools like the Front Garden Retrofit Kit. But there's also many different things that people are doing and can do. And so I hope that this will inspire everyone who's here to try out this sort of things. And for us at Civic Square, we really are about trying to create that infrastructure that enables more people to do this sort of stuff in their neighbourhoods, and moving beyond like what the councils do, which is just consult people on planning and stuff like that, but actually giving the tools and the spaces and the learning opportunities for the skills and all that sort of stuff that will build the confidence that we all kind of need to step into these spaces that feel quite big and beyond our knowledge and our capabilities. But there's many different access points, and this can be one of them. So I hope you can talk to any one of the We Can Make team to find out more about their kits, and they've actually got the factory here, so if you're in Bristol you can probably talk to them about actually taking some away or taking it in for your garden. And then beyond, we are going to continue this conversation at the next Retrofit Reimagined sessions as well. So you can come and talk to us at the Civic Square team if you want to know more as well. So yeah, thank you.
I like it's kind of a proper goosebump stuff when you talk and share your story. I mean, you've had this a month, Dilwara, and it's like, I mean, you know, you're an incredible storyteller, and like you are the guardian of the galaxy and many more things as well. But I just I think it points to that wider hunger for this type of connection that we kind of want to grow, and that's really powerful. And then it's also what we're doing this is what we're trying to prototype as a different way to do retrofit that really can invite everyone in and feed much more than just a conversation about U values or insulation performance. It's like, this is really deeper stuff, and we're retrofitting a lot more than just building stock. It's a lot more, there's deeper stuff going on. So talk to each other, make the connections, and let's do more. That's very, very cool. Yeah, definitely last word.
I just want to give a shout out to my sharing library, so please have your pens ready or your Facebook page open. It's at Sharing Library 2023. Please follow my page, and it'll inspire you to see what sort of dialogues that are happening and how I record things, and hopefully it'll inspire you to make it yours, take ownership of it. I mean, before I was empowered, and I'm calling it empowered, I really had a dream, but I couldn't make it happen. And it's been realized now, and I know I matter. And if I matter, you matter. And if I could do it as an individual, we could do it as a collective. And I've been using that a lot in my Facebook posts when I write it. As an individual and as a collective, we can make a difference for a happier society. So give it a go.
Amazing. I want all of that written on a T-shirt, and then I'm just like, that would be great. Thank you so much, and thank you, Daniel. It's beautiful how you've helped.